Hi and welcome. In this video I'll show you how you can use the Figaf tool to manage transport of your B2B scenario. So my goal here is to show you what are the different steps that you need to create a transport request. So here we have an iflow. It is in our cloud integration tenant. I've just made a change of one of the endpoints here. But we can also go in and say, let's also just make a change here in some of the XSLT code here. We'll just add new date. Good. And we'll save it as a version, and we just keep in mind what version is that we have here. And we also say deploy. So one of the things that is important, so the first thing you need to do if you have CPI helper is to go in here, put in the URL of your Figaf system. I also have it open up here, and I can go to my tracked objects. Here I can see what is going on in the system. So here we have the Figaf tool, this tracked objects. Here I can go in and select synchronize. I can select here a specific package. So I can select the package that my iflow is in, and I can see synchronize. I can also put in more criteria if we want to get a little more detailed about what goes on. And the synchronization takes a few seconds to run. Normally, if you have a large package or do it for the full system, it may take a little longer time. If you have CPI helper installed also, you have an option here that says synchronize. This will send the data to, or ask Figaf to synchronize this specific iflow. So this is obviously a little faster if you want to use this in this this process. So you can see here it only took 10 seconds. Is it waiting? So sometime it would also wait on other criteria. But I think actually the part we did here when we did synchronize it, we set all. You can select only CPI. If you select the TPM, it will also do all other synchronization, which takes a little longer. Anyway, we got our new iflow here. We can see that it has the new version. We can go in and compare what was the difference between versions. So we have here compare BPMN view, where we can see what was precisely changed. And we can go here, list of changes, HTTPS collaboration. We can see that there was a point here, and we can go in and see precisely what was changed in this. And we can see here it is the endpoint that was changed. There is also something when you're looking at larger connections that where there could be a documentation change that sometimes happens. We haven't really identified when. So this gives you an overview of what is really going on and what has happened. We can also do it here in the diff to HTML, where we can see what is actually the code difference that we have in this, this scenario. And we can see the code here as we just modified. Okay. One thing that's obviously also recommended is that you create test cases around this. And there's obviously a lot of different ways to test. So let me just give you the easiest way to create test cases. So that would be to go here in CPI helper, enable trace. So go in here and send a message into this iflow. Doing that on the different screen, I'll just have Bruno running there. And what we can then see is we should have received a new process here. We have this if icon here, or if text, and now we can actually create a test case on this. We would have a structure on the test cases where we would probably make it on package or something else level to make sense. Obviously, you need to follow the company's guidelines on this. We can go in and put in extra criteria if we want to extract payloads of it. But now it will look into this trace, and we will actually be able to see all the different payloads that exist from this. So now we have a test case here. We can see that it has been created. We can go in and see more details over here about it. But let's just create this as a test case. We can see which systems we want to run it on. So default just use the old system we have. And when you're creating it, the test case, there is a property that says regression or baseline. Regression is that the Figaf tool is sending the message in. Baseline is that the original system sends it in. So most cases, you should just select regression testing. So now we have a test case. We can then go in here and we can select run on, where we will be able to actually send the message in to the same iflow. And if we go here, we can then see that there should be a new message processed here for seconds. So we can see the new message has been processed. And if we expand here, we can see the testing result, and we can see this is all successful. If it is not successful, you would need to add some of these criteria. And let me just try to remove one of these criteria here. Let's do the updated one also. And we can also see that there's some header properties here. We'll add these also and save. And then we will do our comparison here again. Process the full comparison. And we will see that there is some errors right now. And what we'll go is go in here, say diff. We can see there's this updated time. We just click here. It will then add an XPath for this criteria, and then we can update it. And once we've done that, we will process the comparison again. One other note here is in this diff, you may also see if there's property differences, then you'd see them down here. And you can either click on that or add all these properties to the setup. So we still have some errors here. So let's check the diff here. There's another updated. We will also add that one. And we will do comparison again. So it's a little iterative to check all these different criteria. What's this one? There's a new property up also here that has been added. And with skip almost successful. That's just a little easier. Now we can see everything seems to be okay. And now we have actually created a test case that we can do. Okay, so it's obviously not required to create test cases, but given that it takes a minute, 2 minutes to create a test case, it makes a lot of sense. We can also go in here and change the text of the test case, so give it a more meaningful name. Testing with customer or something, some default information we want to have. And this just gives us a little more insight. So when we go and look at our test cases out here, for the updated test cases here, we can see that the test case here has been updated, and this makes it a little easier for us to see these different test cases that we're running, what they mean, what's going on in this scenario. Okay. And different way to create test cases is to go in here, go in and create a new request, create a testing, a name of the iflow here. We would select the iflow here, which is get customer 2. So this is we can see the endpoint that is being selected, and we see what are the payload we want to send to this. So if we go in here, we can send the payload here. And we can run it. So this is just like running it in Postman. It is just a little easier to have your details here. And you can obviously save these so you have them for future runs. And if you want, for instance, to create this also as a test case, you just click here, record, run for recording. And here we can then go in and says, yes, now we have this test case. And then we can actually see all the details, and we can go in and create this as a test case the same way as we did before. So if we click here, this is precisely the same when we went from CPI helper. So this covers a lot of use cases. There's some limits on what you can do with this also. Anyway, good. So the challenge is now we have our iflow. We have made a change on it, and we want to transfer to the QA system. We have two options. We can do it from either from here, where we say assign to ticket. We should select a landscape here. I have one here. Or let me just take what's the one this is the one I normally use. We can create a description here. What we are going to do, we would go in here and add our Jira ServiceNow ID or whatever we have. And we also have the ability that you can actually have configured lookup into the Jira. We will add the Jira URL here for this. So we can easily go in and do stuff, and we'll describe what we are changing here. Good. So this is to create a ticket. We have selected our object, and we can go here and say create ticket. We could also have done it from the landscape overview, and this is a little easier way to actually go in and work on these things. So here you can go and search for the packet, so which is faster. We can see what we actually have here, and we can see in dev we have this version, in QA we have this version. There's something that we have not selected here, which could be problematic, that they have not been designed. And we can see in production we have this. We can go in and do comparison between the dev and the production and see what is all the differences that exist here. There's the last header, collaboration ID, that has been changed. So that makes it really easy, powerful to go in and see, okay, what is it that I need to miss here? And we can go in and say, we only want to see changes that have happened the last 2 days on this, giving you a much better overview of what you need to do. So this is probably the place where you should be doing your transport. We can go in here and select here, create ticket. And here it's the same problem or same setup for it, or we can just select the ticket we already created. So if you have created a ticket, you can continuously add new content to it. And then let's just also add this one. So we'll also add this one to our ticket here, demo transport. You can see the different tickets that you're working on here on the tickets. We can see the ticket here is in development, and development is our state that this is something we need to work on. We can see the objects that we have here, and we can go in here and say attach all dependent objects. So this is really useful. For instance, here we can see we're also adding the OAuth credential that is missing in it. Or that's a part of it. We can see that if it uses script collections, all these things would be in this specific flow, making it a little easier for you to actually work on and be able to do. So next up is we can go into the test cases. Here we can look up all the relevant test cases, and we can see, hey, there was this test case we created. Let's see here. This test case here, 12th, and we can select it. We should obviously run all the different test cases that we have on it, but we then say, hey, we want to run this on the dev system. And the reason why you want to run this also as a part of this is that, so we can go in here, we can see the test suite where we have all the different test cases, all the different results of this test. And the reason why you want to have it under the ticket also is it makes it easier for you to prove that you have tested this integration when working on it. So we can see here we have testing results, it is regression here, and it is status unfinished. We can check the status here. We can see everything is okay. We do have some batch jobs that runs time to time to go and check what is the status of these things. So obviously unfinished step, you need to go and check what is going on with it. So now it's successful, and we can see it's also successful out here. So that means our test for this specific scenario is successful. So now we have all the objects, we have tested them, and we'll go to the transport. Here in the transport, we can see the different credentials or the different artifacts that we're going to transport. We can see here, if we click here, we can see the externalized properties that we have. There is some that is marked with this that is update by replacement rule. And the thing is, on the landscape level, your administrator can go in and create changes that go and search for services.odata.org and replaces it with qaservices.odata.org. And this means that you do not need to remember all of these specific properties in your landscape. You can obviously go in and override this and say, yes, I don't want it. This is something that's important. We want to check. But obviously, your standard host names, S4 hostname, ERP, all these other things should be added here. So you do not need to remember this whenever you're doing a transport. You should anyway go in here and check, is everything correct, smooth setup. We can see here there's a OData credential. If we go in and say this in the new system here is something else, we will get a warning saying, hey, this is not available in the target system. Do we want to create it or not? For now, this is okay. We don't want to change it. The thing is, there's two objects here that's important. That's the inherit from source. This is that we say that the dev object is the one that is in charge of this object. And that means we're just taking the dev value, putting it over. We also have the inherit from source, and this is if you say that the value already exists in the target system, or the iflow already exists in the target system, then it will as default say inherit from target, where it says this is the master. We do not want to make changes to them as per se. So you will go in and say it's already there. We want to reuse that value. So inherit from source, the dev system or the original system chose. Inherit from target is that if the value is already in the system, that one would be chosen. Recommended is to use inherit from source and then go in, for instance, on specific one and go and change, yes, I want to change this API key or whatever you have as a parameter in here, making it easy for the user to go in and check these things. Here we can also see there's something we have not figured out what is, and we do not see that this is a credential. We can go in and say, yes, this is a OAuth credential, and then we will check it, and we'll see whether or not that exists on the target system. But this is, I guess, I'm not sure why you would add a password that is not configured correctly. But that is how you will set up this configuration. Okay, so you can also take here this report here. Here you can see all the different properties of the two different iflows we have. So this is also a good sanity check to go in and check what actually do we have, and we can see this inherit from source and target and the new value, the old value on the source value. All really good questions and scenarios you should be checking. If you make changes into the CSV, you can upload it. Do be sure that it has the same property as the original one, the same CSV format. Then you can upload it again. Be sure that if you make changes, use this inherit from source and remove those values. We would also have this display design guidelines. Here we can go in and see, so what does SAP says about some of these criteria? Have they all been skipped, or is there actually something that we need to check in the system before we go in and do the validation? We would also, in some cases, have on the landscape item, have criteria that we will go in and check. So this could either be the result of a Git pipeline. This could be the result of an XPath search that we could do in the content to check, does this actually make sense? And if it does that, you'll see an error symbol out here saying there's something you need to check. And you should obviously check that what it is. Go check with your team, is that correct? Or figure out what goes on. Once you have gone and do those checks, you can also go in and do the same comparison here. What are the difference we are going to add to this flow? What are all the BPM configurations? And I think one thing I would often do is go into this BPMN model viewer here just to see what goes on. I will do a search here. You can search for all content, so demo, which scenario steps do we use this in this one. Or you can go in and see externalized parameters. We can see this new key is actually never used, so we should probably go back and delete that. Maybe let's go do that. So the idea is obviously you will find out these problems. So we'll go here, we will go and we will see the externalized parameters. We can see that the new key was never used, and we want to remove these unused. So these are the unused one. We say remove. Now we need to save it as a new version. So it's 69 now. And that means that in the Figaf tool, we need to go back to our ticket, and we need to switch it back to development. We need to do a synchronization again. So if you have done a transport, it will actually figure out that there's a new version of it. We need to do a synchronization here on the dev system. So that's pretty fast. And then we say, hey, we need to update this to the latest version. So now we have both versions in this ticket. We can then start the transport. And now we have the same details in the transport, but with the 269 here. Same properties, but less external properties. And then we send it to approval. And now the approver guy can go in and approve all your transport requests, figure out what to do. If you do not have approval on, you will just be able to import it down here. So let's just here start the review. If you have a lot of approvers, they would be able to do a review and say, who started this? And we can do approve here. Good. If you do a reject, it will come back to the developer to go and figure out what goes on here. Once it's approved, you can import it. And if you do not have approval, you will just have this import option here. And this will then import it, apply the configuration, do a synchronization. And yeah, we say here we do not have this property defined, so we can see here we can roll back if we do not want this. So obviously there's some limits on what we can roll back, what we have inside of this landscape. But this gives you a pretty good understanding of how the transport process works, what we can actually do. And we can then go here and say, hey, this was skipped because it was already there, but we can see this was imported into our system. And notice we are reusing dev tenant also for QA, just to make it our life a little easier. And reusing the tenants, it's all part of the transport governance process. So one of the things that you can also see here, and that where it's really powerful, if you go here on the system, on the landscape, you can see the transport history. You can actually see it was this Figaf transport, it was this issue, this JIRA, and the description here. This just makes it so much easier for you to actually go back and forth between the systems, figure out why you actually made these changes. So if you're on your productive system, see this, then you can actually easily see why this was changed. I hope this gave a good an idea about how you can manage your integration, how you can transport landscape objects. And I guess, just the last thing here. So when we now look at it here, we can see the status. There seems to be some synchronization challenges here. So let's just synchronize this. For the package, we need to select here the CPI and reinitialize external parameters. Because we need to check that all of those has been configured correctly. And we can see it's done this, synchronization finished. We refresh. So it is stopping. We should have it as deploying, and then we should be able to see that it has been started here with the correct properties. But there could be some problems with the deploy cycle that we do not see in here. I hope you got a good understanding of what the tool can do, how you can create transport, how you can do validations on these, how you can configure externalized properties, see what goes on in your system. I hope you like it, and good luck with transporting with the Figaf tool.